saving the best division for last, of course, the Kansas City Chiefs in the AFC West. Like, even before we led this whole show with Rashee Rice, I think we all agreed that wide receiver was going to be a focus. Offense is going to be a focus. So, in my mind, bottom of the first round, they're still going to have a chance at a receiver that most years would be taken in the top half of the first round. They can address that. Now, it feels like, especially with L'Jarius Sneed on, corner also becomes something they're going to continue to address. But early rounds, got to feel like wide receiver. I just wouldn't be surprised, to your point that you just made, to see the Chiefs take multiple wide receivers in this draft and just try and fill the room.
Yeah, and they could do that because they're good everywhere else. Cornerback is an issue. What made their defense great last year? There were a few things. One of them was that they had these 2 elite cornerbacks, and now you don't. Like, that's something you're going to have to address. L'Jarius Sneed moving on to Tennessee in that trade. So, cornerback wouldn't bother me at all. Offensive tackle wouldn't bother me at all. I mean, you never go wrong taking offensive line if that slips to you. But yes, receiver definitely stands out here, even without knowing what's going to happen with Rashee Rice or whatever with that. I love the Marquise Brown signing. 1 year, $7 million. Who cares? Like, you're taking a shot on a former first-round pick and 1,000-yard receiver at the Ravens. Like, this is a guy who has talent. He just needs probably to get in a better situation and stay healthy. Love the Marquise Brown signing, but I don't necessarily. You don't sign Marquise Brown and say, "Well, we're done. We have our receiver room covered." Like, so draft another guy, because it's amazing they won a Super Bowl last year with the receiver problems they had. I mean, just patching that thing together. Don't patch it together anymore. Invest in a position and watch Patrick Mahomes cook again.
The Chargers, I know they have a quarterback. I think we're underselling the fact that the rest of this roster is being rebuilt. I know everybody loves Harbaugh and everybody loves Herbert, and that's fine. You can love both those players, but the Chargers picking at 5 have a real shot at the number 1 player in this draft that's not a quarterback. I still think quarterbacks are going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. So they're going to have a shot at whatever they want. The question is, do they want Marvin Harrison Jr. to team with Justin Herbert? Seems dangerous. Or do they actually want to give themselves offensive line help with, like I mentioned, Joe Alt? But I think what part of the reason I love the idea of going offensive line early is they can go wide receiver in the second round. They're still picking early in the second round to get some of those needs. But if there's a team in this year's draft that I think we're sleeping on why they should trade down, it's actually the Chargers. They have a ton of needs other than quarterbacks. So in this very rich draft where there's going to be somebody obsessed with one of these players, if I'm the Chargers, I would be very seriously considering the option of adding as many quality players. If there are 40 or 50 good players in this draft, give yourself as many shots in those first 40 or 50 picks. I think they could get a king's ransom for that 5th pick overall, and they've got a ton of needs.
Look, to me, this is just me. And maybe I'm just over the moon for this player because I'm a Big Ten guy and have seen him just dominate. But if Marvin Harrison Jr. is there for me and I'm Chargers, I run the pick up. Like, there's Aiden Hutchinson Lions pick. Remember, they ran it up. They were picking 13 seconds after they went on the clock because they wanted to show everybody this is our guy and we love this pick. That's what I'd be doing if I was the Chargers. I get it. They need offensive line help, but there's some good offensive linemen. Alt, like you said, be a fine pick for them. But no way I don't pass on Marvin Harrison if I'm 4 with the Cardinals. Definitely don't pass on 5 with the Chargers. Look, they traded Keenan Allen. They had to cut Mike Williams. As much as I like Josh Palmer as a player, you need to get something for Justin Herbert to throw to. And the best receiver prospect in this draft, and maybe in many drafts, I draft Marvin Harrison all day. But yes, offensive line could use some work. But that's the best player available. Like, you don't pass on a generational talented receiver like Marvin Harrison if I'm the Chargers.
The only pushback I have to that is if you can move back 4 or 5 or 6 picks and have a shot at Rome Odunze.
I get it, but I don't think they're on the same tier. This is a hill I'm going to die on. Those guys are good. They're very, very good. Like, to me, Marvin Harrison is he's got Randy Moss vibes to me. And I mean, Randy Moss might be the second best receiver of all time. I'm not saying he's going to be that, but I'm not saying he's not going to be that either. Like, this guy is, to me, he is just superstar. This is going to be the number 1 receiver in the entire NFL in a few years type of guy. Like, you don't pass on. Those other guys are great. No problem with that. I get it.
Yeah,
you move back, you get extra picks,
yeah.
But Marvin is just something else to me. I think Marvin is the complete package.
Especially with Justin Herbert. And look, I put a lot of thought last year, as I've mentioned before, into my Bolitnikoff Award vote. Humble brag. I have a Bolitnikoff Award vote for best wide receiver in college football. And I keep saying the number that stuck out to me for Marvin was 0. That's the number of drops he's had over the last 2 years.
Unbelievable. He is as good as I've seen coming out of college. I just marvel at him, how good he is. I mean, he does everything well. He is just special to me. And the other guys are very, very good, but I don't pass special to draft very good.
People are going to say I'm biased when I say this, and I'm accepting that already. The Broncos suck. Top to bottom, the roster sucks.
My goodness.
The Broncos, what do the Broncos need? Everything, right?
Everything.
Like, look, and I'm sitting here saying, look, as a lifelong diehard Raiders fan, I'm sitting here saying, I see the path for the Chiefs to three-peat. It's simple. I'm sitting there saying, I think the Chargers are going to rebuild, but I believe that they have the quarterback and the coach in place to make that rebuild sustainable. And in a couple of years, they are going to be a juggernaut. I don't see any of that with Denver. Like, I think Sean Payton is doing what so many coaches do. He's ripping it down to the studs, but they weren't bad enough to get a sure answer at quarterback. And now they're in a spot where they need everything, and where they're picking, I just don't think the quarterback savior is going to be there. So if you're suddenly the Broncos, man, you need everything across the board, and you're going to have to figure out, do you trade up? How do you trade up when you need everything? So I think the Broncos are genuinely screwed in this year's draft.
Again, these exercises can be illuminating to just go through a team. I'm going to look at fresh eyes. And I was like, oh my God, the Denver Broncos could use every single position on the field, except like cornerback 1 where they have Patrick Surtain. This is a really bad team, like really, really bad. I think their season win total is 5.5, and I'm like, maybe I just punch an under ticket right now, because other than Sean Payton's X's and O's brilliance, I don't really know what this team brings to the table. Like, this is a bad football team. And so when people talk about, oh, they're going to trade up for a quarterback, or if you're the Denver Broncos and you're this talent poor, are you really trading draft capital to move up and take the 5th best quarterback in the draft class, maybe Bo Nix or whatever you're going to do, or even McCarthy? You better be convinced, because this team needs everything. The Russell Wilson cap hit is killing them. This is a bad football team right now. Again, Sean Payton's going to get a lot out of them that he shouldn't, because he's a really, really good coach, great X's and O's. But this Broncos roster is so depleted. I could not sign off on them trading up for a quarterback, just because you need so much, and it's going to take a lot to move up and get a McCarthy, even to get a Nix maybe at 5'6", whatever you're going to get him at. I just can't justify it. This team has too many needs. Just no way. You got to start rebuilding, and it's going to be a slow, long process for the Broncos.
I won't make Stone and the entire world listen to my beloved Raiders take for the 400th time, but I will end with the team that I don't think is that dissimilar than the Jets in some ways, that the Raiders are sort of stuck. They weren't bad enough to be bad enough to get the quarterback that they need. They have too many talented players, especially you look at the money they've spent. They are telling you that they're trying to win right now, which is virtually impossible to do with the quarterback room that they have. So the only question is, can they trade up high enough to get a quarterback? And I genuinely think a team could offer 5 years of first-round picks, and the first, second, and third picks are not going to be up for sale. That means the best shot that the Raiders have is the 4th or 5th best quarterback in this year's draft. I think that's stupid. So the Raiders' biggest needs, offensive line, secondary, right? They need help on the offensive line. They need secondary help. Where they're picking at 13, they'll have the chance to do all of that. I would not be surprised at all to see the Raiders in a situation where they do all of that, and then they try next year to go aggressively after a quarterback in the free agent market. They try and figure out if, again, do they have the equity to move up? But you can want to move up all day, Frank, doesn't mean you can. So I think the Raiders' biggest needs that are actually attainable, offensive line and corner.
I had that exactly listed. And with the quarterback, I mean, what do you do at quarterback? You're not in a spot to draft one. So you said it best. I can't even add anything to that. That's perfectly said.